Well, the long and short of it, because it's a very, very long story, is that the club that is called Royal AM is believing that they are the rightful champions of the Glad Africa Championship, and they would then be automatically promoted to the DSTV Premiership. And this is because of an issue that happened between Polokwane City and Sekhukhune United back in January, where there was an infringement with the under-23 players. Now, because they did not play enough number of under-23 players, they were punished and they forfeited that match. The points then went to Sekhukhune United, and Sekhukhune United have now been declared the winners of that particular league, which has now caused all sorts of problems with regards to who actually is the champions. And to discuss this matter, I have invited specifically Advocate Zola Majavu, who is joining us via video line right now, because he is a former PSL prosecutor, so possibly the best placed person to tell us about the legal intricacies that go or happen inside the PSL DC and all the things that follow that. And I must put it out there that Advocate Zola Majavu had been approached by some of the parties that are involved, but he did decline because he was at the time on the bench. So Advocate Zola Majavu, thank you so much for your time this morning, sir, and welcome to the AM Report. Let's start here. As a former PSL prosecutor, we all want to understand this. What is the time frame that the league has to deal with such matters? And because they've been criticized for their role in all of this, could they have handled it a lot better? Because this is a January issue.
Look, firstly, good morning, Benjamin Leshoro, and good morning to the viewers out there. Let me also correct, I do not practice as an advocate. I don't use the title. But having said that, the league rules do make provision for the time within which misconduct issues must be prosecuted. Once the league DC charges a club for a particular infringement and a sanction is arrived at, presumably in January, then it is open not to the league, but to any party that may be affected or aggrieved by that decision to then, on themselves, take the matter up to appeal under the auspices of the SAFA Appeal Board. That must be done within a period of 72 hours of such a decision being made. And if the SAFA Appeal Board convenes and they also give a ruling, the aggrieved party still has another further 3 days or 72 hours, if you like, to take the matter to arbitration, so that the arbitrator must then sit and decide this matter. And once the arbitrator usually has spoken, that is the end of the matter. There is no appeal that lies against an arbitrator's decision. However, it may be open to review in a court of law, and a review is different to an appeal. A review talks more to the procedural, gross procedural irregularity, not that you are not happy with the outcome. As to why it took this long, I am not in a position to say. But insofar as the league having charged these people timelessly is concerned, that could well have taken care of the matter. And it is not uncommon for clubs themselves who are aware of some of these issues to sit up to the end of the season. And only when they see things are not necessarily going their way, then they start raising issues. And I'm not blaming the club. I must state on record that in this case, Royal AM is perfectly entitled to take the route that they have taken. Whether it is meritorious or not is another story. But the timing is important. If this matter was dealt with much earlier than now, I do not think we'd be sitting where we are. And I'm casting no aspersions on anyone. I'm just saying it as it is.
Now, let's go back to the issue itself. Polokwane City were the initial transgressor in this entire thing, played 4 under-23 players, and the rules are specific that there should be 5 under-23 players in the Glad Africa Championship. We must specify this, not in the DSTV Premiership. And for me, precedence is important here. Has there been a case before where points are taken from one team and handed to the other? Was it the right decision to hand the 3 points in that match to Sekhukhune United? Let's start there.
Context is important. The rules of the league, the rules of SAFA, the rules of CAF, and the rules of FIFA, and I'm deliberately giving you that hierarchy, do contemplate that position. That in the event Leshoro 11 lodges a protest about a particular infringement at the instance of another club, if they are successful in that protest, it is possible for that particular offending club to have points docked and also those points awarded to Leshoro 11, firstly. So there is nothing wrong or untoward with that. And the arbitrator has found that to be the case. Now, whether the arbitrator is right or wrong is neither here nor there, because at the level of determination of the merits, the arbitrator's decision is final and binding. So what happened in this instance is that decision was taken on review before Sutherland DJP in the South Gauteng High Court. And I'm speaking general. I'm not discussing the specifics about any particular club in terms of the approach. Then that judge dismissed that review. Then there was an interdict to say, because the merits are still going to be subjected to an appeal, the playoffs that were due to take place should be interdicted. Royal AM interdicted those successfully through Nyati AJ's decision. And then an application for leave to appeal was lodged against Sutherland DJP's order. He dismissed that application for leave to appeal on the basis that he does not think that another court would come to another decision, which is the appropriate test here, not whether he is right or wrong. Now, that is where the matter is. Now, there is now a further petition to the Supreme Court of Appeal, and as Royal AM is entitled to do so, to challenge the Sutherland decision. But as matters stand now, there is another judgment yet to be handed down at 9:30 by Nyati. This is the judge who issued an interdict. Now that further contaminates the water somewhat, but the answer to your question directly is that there is absolutely nothing unfootball about points being docked from the one club and being awarded to another. The rules of the league are not silent on that matter. And the judge has found that indeed the rules of the league are not silent. The rules of the league, if they are silent, then you default to a higher authority. In this instance, in terms of the hierarchy, it will be SAFA, CAF, or FIFA. But in this instance, you don't even need to go there because the rules of the league tell you, I have in my time docked and awarded points. There is nothing, it's not as if it is something new or unheard of. Whether it is right or wrong, those are the rules that the 32 clubs wrote themselves. If they want those rules changed, it is open to them because they are members of a self-governing institution. And they themselves write those rules. So, yes, it appears to be unfair, and I feel for Royal AM. They are perfectly entitled to do what they're doing. But I am not sure whether or not seeking to ventilate that through the courts of law is necessarily the correct way. I respect their rights, I respect the league's rights, I respect the rights of everybody involved in this, but litigation in such matters, in my view, is not the way to go. But we've got to respect that people have a right to vindicate their rights all the way through the courts if necessary. But the football judicial system does more than cater sufficiently for these types of disputes. What is unfortunate here, and I say it with tongue in cheek, is the timing, because it now affected a party that won a particular match on the field of play. But it is not unheard of. Let me give an example, Benji. If you are playing as Benji 11 and two of your players get red carded, and you are playing Majavu 11, and I win that match, of course I'll win because I had a 11-man strong team when you had 9 person. And I'll have the benefit because the rules of the game says if you are red carded, you get out of the pitch. It does not say the game stops. It's just an analogy to demonstrate that sometimes this unfairness is part and parcel of the game. It happens all the time.
Now, what I need to understand, because right now, Advocate, and also in the interest of time, Royal AM are basing their insistence on not playing the playoffs on the ruling by Judge Nyati, and that was the interdict, or the granting of the interdict. But it said specifically that it is pending the ruling on the leave to appeal, and that leave to appeal application was then dismissed by Judge Sutherland. Does it now throw out the interdict completely, and now Royal AM do not have a legal leg to stand on to say we are not playing the playoffs because of what Judge Nyati said?
I think it's a beautiful observation, Benji. I couldn't have said it better. But the limitation and the constraint for me is that in literally 1 hour, 30 minutes, we'll hear what Judge Nyati himself has to say. So as an officer of the court, I would be constrained to try and preempt his judgment. But the observation that you are making is apt, because it was a temporary order. There was no appeal before Nyati AJ on the merits of the matter. What Nyati AJ had to deal with on an urgent basis was that pending whatever happens in the Sutherland court, league, as you were entitled or intending to do so, do not continue with the playoffs. And the league obliged. That's why the kickoff of the playoffs that was scheduled for Thursday, I think, did not happen. The league only scheduled the continuation of the playoffs only on Saturday, which is a day after the Sutherland dismissal of the leave to appeal, because at that point there was no live appeal. Now, the league was perfectly, in my view, entitled to then schedule, and that is why that game of Chippa went ahead on Saturday afternoon. So, if, for example, Royal AM does not pitch as they say they would, they are perfectly entitled to do so. But in my personal view, and it's my view and I stand by it, I'm not ashamed of it, I think they are treading on dangerous waters, because Chippa will rock up, they will honor the fixture, the match officials will be there, and those of us who follow football will tell you that there'll be a walkover.
Okay, advocate.
Time, if there's no pitching, there'll be a walkover, but let's not preempt it, because Nyati will speak for himself, and it may well be that that match may or may not happen, and there is still a petition pending before the SCA. I don't want the Royal AM people to start complaining and saying that we're violating their rights. I'm just giving you comments as I understand the law. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for this explanation, Mr. Majavu, and for your time. It is a very complex matter, and we'll find out at 9:30 this morning what Judge Nyati has to say. It will have a huge implication on what happens at 3 o'clock this afternoon. That's Zola Majavu, former PSL prosecutor, talking to us about this entire matter that doesn't look like the end is nigh.